Warm welcome to the forum at 8 here on SAFM, South Africa's news and information lead. Already a couple of emails and SMSs coming through on our topic this morning about sexual abuse and sexualization of children in this country. Let me just read you one email that came through just a short while ago from Lutando Lukozi, who says, only if all parents can understand that if you give your child love all the time, they are least likely to seek love elsewhere in the wrong place or engage in immoral sexual activities. Paying school fees or giving pocket money to your children is not necessarily showing love, but it's simply just raising a child. There's a difference between the two. A child who is loved will choose their friends correctly and you won't have to shout at them all the time. But fact is, most parents can't even tell when their children's dreams are or what their children's dreams are, or what motivates them as an indication of how distant parents are to the children and that they are raising under their roofs. That's a comment from Lutando Lukozi on email. But also another comment came through on SMS just a short while ago. Somebody also saying that it's the result of what is happening in our society, and children are picking this up from society. Now, we will be talking about this issue. Let me just quickly introduce our guests on the program this morning. Let me start here in the studio with me. Charles Patlane is the spokesperson for the Gauteng Department of Basic Education. Charles, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Morning and morning to your listeners.
Thank you very much. Also joining us in the studio, Nicole Ekonomu, who is an educational psychologist. Nicole, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for your time. On the line, we're joined by Ntabi Pui, a researcher at education, or a researcher in education at Section 27. A very good morning, Tabi.
Good morning.
I'm going to go to Ntabi just to give us the extent, as far as they're concerned, as Section 27 of the problems here. But let me start with you, Mr. Patlane, from the Department of Basic Education here in Gauteng. And I'm going to do so by quoting a newspaper article. A newspaper article says, it quotes Mark Haywood, the director of rights organization Section 27, is saying, sexual violence against pupils appears to be a pandemic in this country. He goes on then to say, about 6 months ago, we took a case to Gauteng Education MEC Barbara Creasy that we were shocked by, and she said something along the lines of, and it's quoted, I get about 6 of these a day, basically admitting that the problem is out of control. Is that what is happening? Is the department getting about 6 of these shocking cases of sexualization and sexual abuse at school?
Well, I don't know if it is to that extent. There are isolated cases that are taking place in schools, at homes, and they also appear in schools where you find that they manifest themselves in school, or we pick up at school that there is something wrong at home and we get social workers involved.
So, if you say isolated cases, that's directly opposite to what we are hearing, that this is a pandemic.
Well, I haven't spoken to Mark Haywood. I don't know what he was referring to and where he got that information.
Yeah, but he says here they spoke to the MEC and the MEC says, well, we get about 6 a day of these. And they would, if you got about 6 of these a day, certainly not isolated.
Well, from where I am sitting, and I do work very closely with the head of social services, I haven't seen 6 cases a day that are taking place. But there are issues of sexualization of children at an early age, and that is what we need to address, to say, what do we do as a community, as society, to
But you see, in order for us to address it, we need to understand the extent of the problem. We need to agree how big the problem is first. And clearly we do not agree, because on one hand you are saying isolated. Section 27 says, hey, it's a bit more than just isolated.
Well, I think we need to have proper statistics that will help us.
And we can only get those stats from the department. And to be honest, I mean, you are the people that can assist us with those stats.
Yes. And I don't think we have proper statistics that would indicate the extent to which we have this.
And why do we not have those statistics? Why doesn't the department have these statistics?
Well, they'll be taking place in different parts at some of the schools, and that's why I was saying that from what I have seen, I haven't seen cases of or 6 cases a day of sexual abuse that is taking place or that is being reported in schools. I haven't seen that, so I'm not able to comment on this issue because I haven't seen it.
But is it possible that it's just pretty difficult for you, or the department is not necessarily inclined towards investigating this matter?
No, we've got a protocol that school principals are supposed to use when dealing with issues of sexual abuse or any issue of sexual misconduct. and it is very clear around reporting to the police so that the police can take up the matter, reporting to social workers so that social workers can address the issue. So principals know how they need to address the issue. At times they might not follow policy, at times they might deviate from that, but that is the task of the department constantly to say this is what you need to do, this is how you need to respond, and the protocol is very clear around how you need to address these issues.
Maybe we should bring in Tabi. Tabi, from where you are as Section 27, is this just a matter of isolated cases?
We don't believe that it's isolated cases. I mean, we're doing cases around the country in different provinces, and what we've seen is that there are huge problems. And from the presentation given by Tinker, it's also clear that the problem is not only sexual violence against learners by teachers or staff members or parents at home or family members, it's also learners against learners. And problem because we don't believe that there are proper systems in place to deal with this problem. On the one hand, we're seeing that these cases are on an increase, and we have media reports around the issues. But on the other hand, we have the department saying it's just a few isolated cases, and that is a problem. And I agree with Mr. Pasana that the statistics are not available, and I think the statistics will give a true reflection of what's happening in schools, and that needs to be done as a matter of urgency so that people out there can realize the extent of the problem and how far-reaching it is and the implications.
But it's interesting you say there are no proper systems. Mr. Patlane implies that there are actually proper systems for the principals to report.
Let's say when we're dealing with these cases, of course, we do the research and look into the policies and protocols that are in place. And you'd find that, yes, there is a protocol in place, but because of lack of training, principals and teachers are not aware of what to do. And then we have instances where teachers are protecting other teachers, or they just do not know what to do because they are not properly trained to deal with these matters. And that's why we think that having a policy or a document in place is not enough if the proper training is not done. And second to that, it's the fact that in many of these cases, it's not only the Department of Education that has a duty to do something. It's a joint thing that needs to be done with the police and social services. And because they're not equipped, again, in dealing with these matters, they don't inform the relevant the relevant people. In one of the cases we had where the police went to the school to investigate one of the cases, the principal refused to speak with the police because he didn't feel that there was a need for him to speak to the police at that moment in time, which is a huge problem.
Nicole, maybe it's time, you want to. I'm going to go back to Mr. Patlane in a minute. Nicole, let me bring you in. Are you surprised that there is so much confusion around this matter? Because, firstly, this is a very kind of sensitive matter and perhaps very difficult for people to report openly.
I'm not surprised because part of being a human being is having sexual instincts. But sexuality evokes a whole array of issues for people: power, guilt, shame, pleasure, whatever it is. But either way, sex and sexuality is a heated issue. So if you're struggling with that phenomenon, how are you going to think about it, and how are you going to dialogue, and how are you going to address it if you can't even think about it?
That's exactly where the problem is. I see Mark Haywood on the line now, the director of Section 27. Mark, thank you very much. I quoted an article in the newspaper that said that you said at that conference last week that you went to the MEC for Education in Gauteng, and she said to you, well, I receive about 6 of these a day.
Well, that's correct, Kolani. We did have a meeting with the MEC, as I said, about 6 months ago, and we went because, as Ntabi has explained, we are picking up an increasing number of these cases, and some of them are very shocking. And what's particularly shocking is the inability of the system to deal with these cases quickly and properly and justly. So we went to have a chat with her, and her response was, well, are you surprised? There's a deeper problem in society of sexual violence and abuse, and the school is just a microcosm of a wider problem. And she did say that they have many of these cases, and my sense was that there's a feeling almost of powerlessness of how to deal with them. And particularly, she emphasized the fact that this cannot just be seen as a Department of Basic Education issue, that there needs to be far better cooperation between the police, the Department of Basic Education, the Department of Social Development, and that cooperation isn't in existence.
All right. Mark, let me come back to you again then, because I would really like you to give us some of these examples that you took to the MEC.
Well, Kolani, I think the best person to speak to on that would be Ntabi, because she's the young attorney who is dealing with these matters on a daily basis and has the first-hand experience of them. What I can say, and she will elaborate, is that we are dealing with allegations, some of which have been proved, of teachers who are raping young or students. Of principals who are involved in this type of thing, and of situations where, other teachers or even the police have been alerted to these things, and there appears to be a degree of impunity, or as I said, if not impunity, then the system is stacked against the victim, the young girl in most of these instances, and makes it very, very difficult to get her the support that she needs.
All right. I thank you, Mark. Again, Ntabi, if you may just add for me on some of the cases that you are dealing with currently.
Okay, just in order to protect confidentiality, I won't be too specific on the issues.
Sure, I
accept. But the one case is where a young learner was kidnapped, drugged, and raped by a teacher, and was dropped off. And the school, for the longest time, refused to talk to the police, and the teachers there, about 4 of them, including the principal, did some sort of cover-up, recording the learner saying that she wants to forgive the perpetrator. And it took us 7 lawyers working on that case to actually get the little girl and the family a protection order. The case is ongoing, and really we're fighting hard in terms of that. The other cases where a principal was found guilty in a criminal court of raping a minor, but the department, when they did their own internal investigation, found that the principal was not guilty. And because the principal was on extended leave, pending his appeal, was back at the school. And it took us communicating with the department, telling them that this is wrong. They should have taken into account the fact that there's a criminal conviction, but that wasn't taken into account. In other instances, we have where the reports are made to the department about sexual abuse happening, but they do not effect a precautionary suspension immediately. They wait for us to intervene and say that this person should be suspended, because in most of the cases, the teachers then start to threaten the learners. And so we had a case where a teacher was in a relationship with many learners, actually promising them marks in exchange for sexual favors. And in this particular case, a lot of the learners stopped and refused to give further evidence because they were being threatened by this teacher. And at that particular point in time, the teacher was not placed on precautionary suspension, so he was still at the school. And it seems to the learners that coming out about it is not helping, and that they're even in danger because of this. And that's partly because teachers and principals also play a role in protecting some of the perpetrators in these cases.